Hi Scrappy Peeps, Suzanna here today for ThermOWeb to share with you my first layout. That is the layout that I created, and I used some Deco Foil products for this Valentine's layout. So what I have here are the adhesive back toner sheets, and I'm using some purple tape to tape that down to my silhouette mat. These sheets are a little bit thicker and they tend to sort of come off the edge of the mat if you don't have a brand new mat, and so that purple tape is a great way to make sure that they stay and don't shift. I then put that through my cut file, my cut machine, and I pulled them off the mat. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay my gold foil over the letters, but what I'm doing here is I am actually just figuring out how I'm going to, the size of the gold foil that I'm going to cut. And what I learned, because I'm a newbie to some of this, is that there are multiple sheets that come in those tubes. So make sure that you only have one sheet when you do that. And you're going to then put that in parchment paper and make sure that the fold side of that parchment goes into your laminator. I did also learn that the size parchment that I had was way too big. And so I did cut that down so that it was a more manageable size, and also meaning that I would not have to wait forever for all of that empty parchment to go through. So while I'm waiting for that to come through, I'm going to try and load up some different letters. So the title of this layout is Love You, and for the O I have created a conversation heart that says cutie pie that I wanted to foil red. So there is the red, and so I'm going to cut a small piece of that, and once again I forgot that there are multiple pieces, so I'm going to end up with 5 squares of red, but it's okay, there's a learning curve to this, and I will be able to use that again, I know I will. And so I'm going to put that down into a smaller little parchment packet, put the fold side in, and make sure that when you're using the foil that you have the colored side facing you, so not against that black of the toner sheet there. And then the last word is you in the title, and I'm going to use gold shattered glass for that. And so I'm just going to cut a piece all the way across, make sure the gold is facing me, put that nicely into my parchment packet, and make sure that the laminator is nice and hot and feed that through the laminator there. So that is the beginning of my title. I want the word love. I really love that mirrored image of love, but I want to add a little bit of texture to that. So I'm going to get out my Big Cake, and I actually have 3 embossing folders there because I thought that I would do each of the letters a different texture, but once I see the hearts, and they are raised hearts, so I embossed rather than debossed the letter, I decided that I don't want to have different letters, and so I'm going to just run the V and the E through that same embossing folder so that I have that same pattern there. And actually, because I am going to create this layout on a striped background paper, it was probably smarter that I did just stick with one consistent letter there. So that was the tutorial part of how you can create those embossed letters. Now we're going to move on to a process video, and I'm going to show you the process of how the remainder of this layout came together. So these are actually scraps of paper that I have used from a Cocoa Vanilla Studio previous layout, and they worked perfectly for this layout because I have that very big title, so that is going to go on the right hand side of the page. And just to add a little bit of color, because I know I have all of this really vibrant gold, I did use some shimmers, and that is Ruby Spritz. I used that in the background, and now I've just pulled out a bunch of different things from my stash. A lot of it is red, some of it is pink, and some of it is black, because those are the Valentine sort of colors that I wanted to go with. I had toyed with throwing some teal in there, but that was going to compete with the vibrancy of the gold, and so I just left that out. So behind those photos there is a tag from Vicki Boutin, and then I have that O as the the conversation heart, but I really liked that doily. When I think of bakery treats and I think of Valentine's Day, for some reason doilies come to mind. And it also, that doily mimics the O in love. I had wanted to add a little bit of black to the photos over there. You can see how I cut that strip, and I'm going to play around with it, and I'm ultimately going to ditch that because it just doesn't work. I really wanted that heavy balance of the pink at the bottom of the tag to match the pink in my daughter's photo. And so by putting that black and white, I was going to cover that, which is why I ended up leaving that there. I like the black in the elements that I end up scattering throughout the layout because they add some weight to my design. When you're considering how you're going to lay out your layouts, you need to think about design principles, and some of the design principles, or one of the design principles that you need to consider, is weight. And so if I had just left the photos on the left-hand side and I hadn't incorporated the black throughout the layout, my layout would have tipped downhill and it would have leaned to the left, metaphorically speaking, of course. And so by getting some of those black elements in there, it creates some balance in the layout and the weight becomes more level. So what do I have here? I have some illustrated faith. I pulled this again because I thought I was going to incorporate that teal into it, but I really liked this washi heart, and I'm sorry it ends up being off camera. I have still yet to figure out the space that I'm filming over. I want to say that it was back in October. I took my tripod down to Biltmore to do some nighttime filming of the Chihuly glass, and I have not been able to get the proportions of this right. Anyway, I digress. So I'm just going through various things that I pulled, and so what I pointed to there is I've created my visual triangle with those black elements. So the heart, the conversation heart with that black speech bubble around it, to the black paper clippy thing with the XOXO, over to that black heart that is over on the left hand side. And actually I'm going to put a little bit more weight to that black by putting a rub on. I had a tag from Vicki Boutin that I put there, and I really liked that, but I actually really liked that tab even better, so I'm going to put that tab. So now I am adhering things down because I'm pretty well committed to all of this, and I am using a Gina K roller. I am a dot gal back from the Kikoyu days. I really loved my dot foam rollers, my dot rollers, and so it's nice to be with ThermOWeb and have these dot rollers that really stick really nicely. So these toner sheets are self-adhesive, or the ones that I have are adhesive backed, and so the nice thing about the adhesive on these, after working with some of the other stuff, is that these have multiple points at which you can peel off the adhesive back, or the backing for the adhesive, which is really nice, but it took me a minute or two to discover that. So I've got my T-square, and so that I can line up all the letters, although when I wrote the blog post for this, I realized that the E was a little bit crooked, but you know, so be it. It's okay. The OCD in me has to let that go. So those are the letters going down, and the adhesive sticks really, really nicely. I didn't have any problems over the doily, and typically things like that tend to be, they tend to come up fairly quickly, but I've moved this layout around a fair amount, and I will tell you I have, the letters are really nicely stuck. So once I get these down, that is going to be kind of the primary contents of the layout, and then I'm just going to do a little bit more embellishing. Again, I want a little bit more black. I also wanted to scatter some red throughout there to kind of go with the mixed media splatters. As you can see, I've covered up many of them, and so I will need to reapply some shimmers, which I will do as well. I am actually going to go in with some additional shimmers. I wanted a little bit of that sort of gray black for the weight of that, and I'm going to use, it's called Chance of Rain Spritz. So I've got those down. I've peeled off the adhesive backing and I've had no issues with that. And here we go with just adding a little bit more color and visual interest to the layout. These rub-ons are from my mind's eye and they are ages old, but they still go on really nicely. And I want to use another heart. I know I want more weight of the black over there, and so I'm going to cut out this smaller or this larger heart from the inside there. I could have applied it as it was from the container sheet, but by cutting it out, I ensure that I don't get any extra rub-on, which has happened in the past. And I'm just using a Vicki Boutin tool there to apply that. Kind of a non-conventional use of the little scraper thing there. So now I have some other Vicki Boutin enamel dots and things, and I'm going to scatter those around. One of the things that I do add to the layout after the fact is I have a enamel heart from Bella Boulevard. I think it might actually be Illustrated Faith, and it's going to go up that top left-hand side there. And the other thing that I am going to do is later on you'll see that I put a LE Studio enamel heart. It's a circle with a white heart in it, and I'll show you where I'll point it out to you when I put it down, but I am going to move that as well because the weight that right there that's going on that E, I am going to move that over to the tag because it kind of stands out like a sore thumb and it ruins the visual triangle that I've created within the layout there. So now I have some stamps and I'm just going to stamp You Have My Heart on the photo directly, which was very brave of me. And that, my friends, is my first layout for ThermOWeb. Thank you for joining me. Enjoy these close-ups. I hope you're doing well. And if you have any questions about ThermOWeb products, please don't hesitate to leave them in the box down below and I will do my best to get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for stopping in today. Take care.